Hello, can everyone hear me? Yes, no. Okay, I only have 10 minutes, so I want to make sure I... Was that my chair?
That was your chair. I was trying to make sure it wasn't my chair.
Okay, folks. You giving me a hand signal or him? No, okay. Okay, folks, how's everyone this evening? Good. Thank you for coming out. 7:30 on a Thursday. It's an NFL draft. I'm a huge football fan. I don't know who my team drafted number 1. I see Dr. Allen is checking it out for me. Yeah, okay. So my name is Donnie Watson. I'm the program director at the Thelma McMillan Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment. Okay, so normally when I do talks like this, you either really like me or you don't like me. And it's okay. I used to worry about whether people like me or not. We all do, but I worry less now. It's okay, because I want to make sure that at least 2 people leave here tonight and do the right thing as it relates to their kids. I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen enough tragedy to last me a lifetime. So if I piss you off a little bit, get over it. It's okay. It's okay. And this is what I tell every parent in this audience. You love your children, right? I do not. Not at all. And some I may not like because they're out of control. Hate to tell you that, but some of them are. So, but I do know this. It's a difficult job to raise your children. And everyone is always good with hindsight advice. Or sometimes people say, well, I wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't do that. You don't know what you will do when the time comes. You know, I'm pretty transparent in terms of how I do this work, but I never tell a parent to put their kid out. I don't tell you to do that. I figure if it comes to that, you will have to figure that out on yourself, but by yourself. And some people give their professional advice, well, you should do this, you should do that. But I think everyone has to make their own decision. But you never want to have any regrets as a parent. And this is what happens. What year is it? It's not a trick question. Somebody please answer me. What year is it? Okay. So we're about, so 20 years ago it was what? Not a trick question. Did I hear 2 answers or just? Okay, you're right. So things have changed in 20 years, right? They're not going back, folks. So the biggest concern that I get when I talk to parents, parents sometimes review their kids vicariously through what they did. And a parent would say, well, I smoked a little marijuana and look at me. And I said, and? What does that have to do with what we're talking about now? Because you were a 15-year-old kid trying to do what you wanted to do. And so some parents fall into that trap, okay? And they don't want to be hypocrites. I'm like, and no one worries about that sort of thing until something bad happens in your life. No one worries. This is what parents always ask me, what do the statistics say about treatment? I said, they can say anything that you really want them to say. About 30% of people might get well, 40%. I don't know all the stats. And you're not asking everybody who's going through treatment their outcome. But what I do know is you don't want to take an unnecessary chance if you don't have to. Don't take a chance that you don't have to, because when something goes wrong with your child, your whole world is turned upside down. Everything that you want it to be has changed. So I always say, don't go down that rabbit hole. That's a Southern term. Some of you West Coast people may not understand that. I'll explain it to you a little later, okay? But it's okay to love your kids. It's okay to give them a chance. But understand what the responsibilities are. And it's easy for anyone in this audience to say what you should do with your kid. One more example. Most of us live in a house, a dwelling, something that has a roof or something over it, right? Okay. Come on, hang with me. We're almost done. Hang with me. And in most of those homes, we have either a smoke detector, right? Or a fire alarm, right? And what's the purpose of those things? Not a test. To warn you. We are the smoke detectors and the fire alarms for our kids. Okay? So you don't really, when that smoke detector goes off, what do you do? What do you do? You panic. And no, that's good. Sometimes we panic because we go, you ever been cooking something and it goes off and you just run and you try to fan it? So you panic, right? And then what do? You find the source of it and you put it out, right? Okay. Quick story about the Thelma McMillan Center. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the man who created the Thelma McMillan Center and why he did so. His name is Carl McMillan, and I'm not violating any of his confidentiality because he's told the story himself and he tells the story in his book, Wealthy Man. You have to be pretty wealthy, I think, to give away $20 million. That's what I call having some money. He's given away $20 million to places other than the Thelma McMillan Center, which bears the name of his first wife. So why is this man so dedicated to that? Well, he lost 2 sons. That'll probably do it for you. And I brought copies of the book, so they're over there if you want to. They're free, or as I said, no cost to you. But he tells his story about he had everything that any person could have, but his son started going down a wrong track, and he didn't know what to do at that time. And, the story doesn't end very well for his kids because 2 of them passed away. But he wanted to make sure that in the South Bay, that parents would have a place to go and come and ask questions. So, and he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. He kind of reminds me of a Matt Dillon, Jimmy Stewart, or somebody like that. He's just a very genuine person. So the title of the book is Tragedies and Triumphs. Okay. So.
And I would be remiss not to say that this is actually his story from in here in Hermosa Beach.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So. Let's talk about the neurological effects of underage drinking. We actually know more about the brain and the functioning than we ever knew before, okay? First of all, we know that addiction is pretty much, it's a medical illness, it's a disease, and a lot of times your genetic predisposition is what locks you into whether you're gonna have problems with it or not. Now we call it a substance use disorder, okay? Now, if you think about brain's development, we now know, and I think the mayor, I said, the mayor, you're giving I thought she was giving my talk. She started talking about brain development, and the brain is not complete until a certain age. I'm like, Mayor, don't give all of my talk. I was like, I got nervous. But bottom line, the male brains may be 25, 24, female brains 23, women are more mature, they always will be, they always have been. Sorry guys, that's just the way it is. Okay, so think about this. So a 14-year-old is, so assuming that for a female is 23, so you have a 14-year-old who's maybe a little over 60% toward what she's going to be at 23, we can't let her make a decision about whether she wants to smoke marijuana or not. We just can't. And some parents will say to me, well, what difference does it make? And how do you know something bad is going to happen? I said, ma'am, I don't know. I don't know that. But I do know this. Out of 10 people, we have about 10% of people in this country who try any kind of drug, they will get addicted to it. And a lot of that is because of genetic predisposition and also external, internal things that happen. And I ask you one question. One question, are you willing to take that chance? And this is a pretty bad analogy, so I don't want people to get crazy. He said this, no, it was terrible, he said this. Just bear with me, please. I'm tired, it's late. I'm trying, and I'm serious about this. Okay, everybody knows about Russian roulette, right? It's a game that people play. You put one bullet in the chamber, spin it. You actually have about an 83% chance that bullet will blow your brains out. The problem is that other 16%. That other 16%, there's no coming back from that. So I say to any parent, if you see something happen with your kid, and the reason I'm so direct about it, I've seen tragedy for decades. And there's nothing worse than me getting a call saying, you remember so-and-so? Because there's a story behind everybody's face, behind every parent and every kid. And if you have a question, just ask somebody. Call me and ask for free. You can come talk to me for free, no charge. But do something if you think there's something going on with your teen. And it's okay. And even if you don't need this information, tell somebody that you know. Okay? So with that, I'm done, but I don't think I'll sit back on this. I'll take my question off this thing.
So thank you very much. You all were so engaging, and we are running a little bit behind because we also started on behind. As I heard, as I was here earlier today, they said if we call something for 6, expect people to start walking in the door at 6:15. So we got started late. So we appreciate you bearing with us if we go over a little bit. Is everybody okay to go over a little bit? Yeah. Okay, great. So that being said, then I'm going to open it up to questions. We're going to take about 5 minutes of questions, and we're going to then introduce the second panel. And then, again, we'll have another round of time for questions. Yes?
So I have a junior in high school and Oh, okay. So my 13-year-old is telling me that her particular class has about 30 to 40 kids that are drinking and doing drugs on a regular basis. And then she tells me that, maybe a handful to a dozen their parents are offering them this alcohol. So as a parent, do we turn those parents in? Like, it's unimaginable to me that these parents are doing this, but that's obviously like me and my families and most of the people. What do you do? Like, how do we stop these parents from offering alcohol to their 13 and 14-year-old kids, and then them saying to them, oh, you can have this. Don't tell your parents that I gave it to you. I mean, it's happening, you guys. It's happening so much in our city, and it's just so sad.
That should be working.
Got a green light, it's working, okay. That was one of the topics that came up at our council meeting on Tuesday when we were discussing the social host ordinance, because if they're hosting parties and giving alcohol to your kids, we can hold them accountable. That's the whole point. And because yeah, and it's the classic case of who wants to be a snitch or who wants to be a tattletale, but you know what, these are your kids, and when you send your kids off to a party, in this case your daughter isn't going, but you may be sending your kid to a party not knowing that they're giving them alcohol there. So you have to be a tattletale, you have to be willing to call that parent and have a conversation because they're contributing to the delinquency of a minor. If we didn't have the social host ordinance, you still have an ability to turn them into the police. Another, I mean, there's no right answer here. If it's happening in a particular class in a particular school, and there's an opportunity to talk to the school principal, to get maybe a parent meeting together to talk about that topic, everything starts with having a conversation. Some parents are doing it, again, thinking it's a rite of passage, I know where they are, it's not a big deal. It goes to the education piece. And sometimes simply sitting down and talking about it will get someone to go, I didn't realize. They'll stop. I don't know that every one of them will, and that's when law enforcement has to get involved. So I'm not saying start with law enforcement necessarily, but that's a tough issue, and that's a tough issue. Each one of you has to make that decision. Are you willing to make that tough phone call to another parent, or to go to a school official, or come to the police department and have the police department go out and talk with them? There's no easy choices here. They're all difficult, but what do they say? We're all adults here, and you got to face it when you have a big responsibility in raising your children.
I think the passing of the social host ordinance this week, I think that's a really great opportunity to open up dialogue and conversations, because it just passed. People won't know what it is. It's an opportunity to say, do you know what kind of ordinance we've just passed in Hermosa Beach and what that means for parent responsibility?
Exactly, and I just want to add, I know I don't want to speak for Rhonda, but the next step is to get Redondo Beach to do the same. We want consistency here in the South Bay because kids are smart. And with social media, guess what? Oh, we can't do it in Manhattan because our parents might get in trouble. They used to be able to say we could go to Hermosa Beach. Now they're going to be able to go to Redondo until we close that loop there too, because kids are smart. They figure it out.
So as a parent, and I feel for what you're saying, is there a way to use WeTip? We're from PV, some people are from PV, and I hear there's been talk at the schools about an anonymous way to turn in information called WeTip, because there are social repercussions, and to the child as well. If WeTip, is there a way to give that information anonymously to protect the minors who are giving the parents the information?
Actually, that's a great idea. WeTip has kind of been superseded by something called Crime Stoppers. So either one of those mechanisms, they forward any type of anonymous tips directly to the police department, and that is another mechanism. And to be honest with you, I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good suggestion.
Okay, I saw other hands. I'm going to get you and then.
What exactly is the social ordinance? Social host, what's it called?
Social host ordinance. If there is a party at your home, whether you're present or not, that your kid holds, and there's alcohol served there, you can be held accountable.
What does that mean, held accountable?
We're going to be issuing citations, and I should have put my glasses on, because we had proposed that first violation, there would be a $500 fine. The parents would get called in and have a long discussion, but the first offense would be a $500 fine, second would be $1,000, and the third would be $1,500. Our council decided the first offense would be $2,500, the second one would be $3,500, and the third one would be $5,000. So they took a stronger stance. To be honest with you, we looked at a couple cities that did that, and I thought, whoa, we're introducing a new concept to our council. I don't know that they'll go there. We didn't have to suggest it. They did it on their own because they recognize it has to hurt enough for people to really get it.
What is it in Manhattan? Is it the same? Are they the same?
I think their fines are start at 1,000 and then go to 1,500. Is that it? And then to 2,000. Usually it's $500 increments, so they start at 1,500 and then go from there.
I just want to make sure I clarify whether the host is there or not.
It doesn't matter whether you're there or not. It's kind of like if your kid takes your car and crashes it, you're responsible whether you were there or not. It's the similar type logic.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
So, do the surrounding cities also participate in this same thing, the social ordinance? And the reason why I ask is because the kids are Ubering to Torrance and Westchester and going to parties there. So I just wondered if the surround.
You know, I think Rhonda or Dorothy may be in a better position to tell you what the other cities. I just know Manhattan because we were looking to what Manhattan was doing, and then there's some cities outside of the South Bay. So Dorothy, do you know the answer?
So I do know the answer to part of it, and then I'm going to hand it to Rhonda. So the reason that Hermosa Beach was the second place that we went for this is because when we were forming the PCC, which is the Prevention Community Council, Manhattan Beach had already started with their social host ordinance. And as a representative of the community through SARB, which is the School Attendance Review Board, it's that stopgap between the high schools or the grade schools and the actual legal process. We looked at it and we thought, what a weird title. We didn't even understand it as counselors and licensed marriage and family therapists and things like that. But as we learned more about it and I started working more directly with the Manhattan Beach City Prosecutor, she just left, darn it. But she has actually gone back to her council twice now, and they've had 2 rewrites of this. So with what our council did here on Tuesday, I know for a fact that they are going to try to come together again. And like we already said, Rhonda and I know that our next step with the PCC is going to be Redondo next year. So she can answer for Torrance. I'm not sure where they are in the process or if they've adopted it yet.
Torrance had been working on it, and so I understand now they may be kind of at a point where they don't know if they have council support. So we don't know what's going to happen yet in Torrance. The city of Gardena has one, Long Beach has one, Carson just passed one about 2 years ago. And we've seen it work, but it works better if it's all the communities in the area that have it. So we definitely want to see that. El Segundo does not have one, and we met with the mayor, and so we do have some council members interested in finding out more about it. So we want to create that awareness so that we can have every city have one. In Ventura County, all 10 cities have a social host ordinance, and they have seen a decrease in the number of parties, and one reason is because they're promoting it, and parents know that they can call law enforcement and utilize the social host ordinance. So we have seen it work.
It's working when parents are using it. Okay, 2 more quick questions, and then we're going to move to the next panel.
How many parents have suffered the consequences of hosting parties where they're serving underage kids alcohol? Is it enforced? Is it happening? Are the repercussions being felt? Because the parties are certainly happening.
Yeah, you know, I can't answer. Manhattan Beach would have been the perfect people to answer because they've had theirs in place since 2007, I believe. You know, we just got the city council to authorize it. We still have to bring it back to the next council agenda for the first reading of the ordinance, and then it comes back a second time before it's actually implemented. So currently, when we get calls about loud parties, usually the music and the noise that gets us there, kids tend to run. I don't think it's any secret. They scatter in all directions. The ones that we do catch, we call the parents. And we, you know, at this point, pretty much we release them to the parents, and Chris, you're out there actually doing it. You know, we don't normally cite the kids, and we don't normally cite the parents, but do you have any?
Well, on those particular situations, because of the minor level of the crime that it's classified as, we don't have access a lot of times to make contact or go into the house to make contact with those parents that might be in there. You know, these parties, these kids and parents are smart. When they see the police knocking on their door, they don't answer. And guess what? I can't break that door down to make them answer. So there are ways that we can go about enforcing certain laws if we can identify them in any given particular call, such as going with our code enforcement, filing an incident report with our detective bureau to see if there's any follow-up workup information. But a lot of times, as far as citing parents at parties where there's alcohol and kids, that's not happened a lot. I don't remember it happening in many years that I was working graveyards. So.
Dr. Watson, Officer in Chief, thank you so much for your really meaningful presentations tonight. I'm wondering what you think about randomly or regularly drug testing your kids before you're suspicious of drug use.
I think you probably hear me. Can you hear me?
For the recording, you have to be on.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Actually, that is one of the recommendations that we think really helps the kid too, because what it does, it gives them a reason not to use, because a lot of times kids will feel pressure, and they can say, well, you know, my parents are really, they're having me to take these random tests. And a lot of times when the kids are in treatment, even in our center, we ask the parents to also do random tests. By the way, you could bring any teen to our center and we will do a random drug test at Thelma McMillan. Don't tell them you're gonna take them for a random drug test a day or two before. Just say, hey, let's go eat. And then you just drop by. But I do think that strategy is really very effective when it does two things. One, the teen knows that you're not playing around with this. They have to be accountable to you, but also it gives them a reason not to, because they're very conscious about other kids and, oh, you're not. So I think it really works well, and we actually recommend that.
One last question.
Just a comment, just to dovetail, you can also tell kids in terms of employers when they want to get a job, there's drug testing. So that could be another out for them. So besides mom and dad doing it, my employer.
Yeah, the unintended consequences. I think that's the last thing I want to say. The unintended consequences, no one thinks about what's going to happen. You try to get a job and you pop dirty for some tests and they may not give you that job just because you're fawning around a little bit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watson. I want to thank our entire panel for all the information and for answering questions. The next panel won't be as dangerous up here because we only have 2 members. Thank you for taking safety.
So we are running a little bit late tonight. Please stay with us. I promise that our second panel is going to be absolutely as powerful as the first. Before Dr. Watson leaves, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us... Okay. Well, the Manhattan Beach prosecutor snuck out on me before we actually had some really good questions for her. One of the things that was on the advertisement is the giveaway. The giveaway, one of them is this book, Triumphs and Tragedies. So on your way out, don't worry, even if he does leave, there's plenty of copies there, and we hope that you do pick them up, and it is all about here in Hermosa Beach. The other one, if you heard a phone go off, and you heard my earlier joke that Derek tells me to put my phone away, and I tell him to put his phone away, and we tell each other to go to the beach. Well, guess what? It was him texting me from the audience. Very important, though, for any of you who came late and you missed what was the beginning of our presentation tonight inside the party, please sign up at the Clear Recovery Center desk over there. They have a sign-in sheet. And then you will also see that the link for Inside the Party is already up. So if for some reason you came late and you didn't see it, or if you couldn't hear it 100%, or if you just want to see it right away again, it's already up for you, okay? I'm handing it back to Debbie.
And I would encourage you not only to go to the link, share it with some of your friends and your other parents, because it really is a great representation of what's going on in those parties. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our second panel. First we have Cindy Strand. She's a parent and a Manhattan Beach resident. Cindy Strand has resided in Manhattan Beach for 20 years, where she and her husband of 34 years have raised 2 children. Cindy is very active in the Beach Cities community. She's a personal commissioner for the Manhattan Beach Unified School District, an ambassador for Manhattan Beach City Hall, an ambassador for South Bay Families Connected, and a member of the local student attendance review board, the SAR board that was just referred to. Cindy is also a volunteer with the Manhattan Beach Police Department, where she aids victims of crime and domestic violence as a victim assistance team member. She's also Manhattan Beach Neighborhood Watch Block captain. Can't imagine a more involved individual in our community. Please welcome Cindy Strand. I would also like to introduce our second panel member, Howard Barker, Communications Director of Clear Recovery Center. As the Communications Director of Clear Recovery Center in Redondo Beach, Howard works to educate the public and raise awareness surrounding treatment, addiction, and dual diagnosis in the community. Howard has experience working with adolescents and young adults in the addiction recovery field and believes that through education and awareness recovery is accessible to anyone. Please welcome Howard Parker.